My brother Emmett was 9 and I was 14 when he disappeared. And when I say disappeared, I don't mean he wandered off. I don't mean someone took him. And I don't mean he ran away. I mean he was crouching behind the water heater in our basement, and then he wasn't. And the only thing left was the sound of counting that none of us had started. There were 4 of us that day. Me, Nora, Emmett, our cousin Hayden, who was 12, and Hayden's friend Suki, also 12, who was sleeping over because her mom worked nights. It was August. The house was the old one on Lanthorn Road, the one with the long, unfinished basement and the attic that still had the previous owner's wallpaper, yellow flowers on a cream field, curling at the seams. We were playing hide and seek. That's it. That's the whole origin. No Ouija board, no dare, no cemetery at midnight. Just 4 kids in a house on a weekday afternoon, and Emmett said, "I'll hide first," and I said, "Fine, I'll count." And I stood in the kitchen with my forehead against the pantry door and counted to 60. I remember getting to 47 and hearing Hayden say from the living room, "Does anyone hear that?" I stopped counting. I did hear it. Someone was counting alongside me, not matching my rhythm, slightly ahead of it, mechanical, like a metronome set 1 click, too fast. The voice was not male or female. It was not coming from a specific direction. It was just there, the way the hum of the refrigerator was there. 49, 50, 51. "That's not funny, Emmett," I called out. 53, 54. Suki came out of the hallway closet where she'd been hiding. "That's not Emmett," she said. She looked scared in the specific way kids look scared when they can't locate the adult who should be handling this. The counting reached 60. Then it said, "And I will hear this for the rest of my life, ready or not." And then it continued. 61, 62, 63. It didn't stop. "Emmett!" I yelled. I wasn't playing anymore. I went straight for the basement because that's where he always hid, behind the water heater or inside the crawlspace access panel that didn't actually lead anywhere. I took the stairs 2 at a time. Hayden was behind me. Suki stayed at the top of the stairs, which I didn't blame her for. The basement was empty. Not Emmett wasn't in his usual spots empty. I mean, the quality of the air was wrong. You know how a room with a person in it feels different from a room without? It was like the basement had been unoccupied for hours. The dust was settled. Nothing had been disturbed. "He didn't come down here," Hayden said, and I could tell he believed it, even though we'd both watched Emmett go downstairs not 3 minutes ago. 88, 89, 90. The counting was louder in the basement. We searched the entire house. Every room, every closet, the attic, the garage, the backyard. Suki checked under every bed. Hayden checked the locked rooms by looking through the keyholes. I called Emmett's name until my throat hurt. He was not in the house. He was not outside. He was not anywhere. 144. 145. Mom came home at 5:30. The counting had not stopped. She couldn't hear it. I need to be clear about that. My mother stood in the kitchen where the counting was loudest, where I could feel it in my back teeth, and she heard nothing. Hayden heard it. Suki heard it. Mom looked at the 3 of us and saw something she categorized as kids playing a game that got out of hand, and she started calling Emmett's name, and then she started calling the neighbors, and then she called the police. The police came. They searched. They were very thorough and very kind. They checked the woods behind the development. They talked to every house on Lanthorn Road. They brought dogs 2 days later. They checked the registered sex offenders in a 4-mile radius. They did everything right. 4,312. 4,313. The counting did not stop. Not that night. Not the next day. It was in every room of the house. Ambient, sourceless. Hayden went home and called me that evening and said he could still hear it at his house, 7 miles away. Suki could hear it at hers. On the second night, lying in bed at 2 a.m., listening to 8,901, I understood something clearly. The game had not ended. I was it. I had been counting, and when the other count reached 60 before mine did, it took over. But the seek phase hadn't started because I hadn't finished counting. And now the count would go on until I did what I was supposed to do. Find him. I sat up in bed. Ready or not, I said out loud. Here I come. The counting stopped. The silence was so abrupt it felt like a pressure change. My ears popped. Downstairs, I heard my mom make a small sound in her sleep, a sigh, like relief she couldn't have consciously felt. Then, very quietly, from the direction of the basement, a giggle. Not Emmett's, not anyone's. Just the idea of a giggle, the acoustic shape of one, stripped of personality or warmth. I did not go to the basement. I pulled the covers over my head like I was 5 years old, and I lay there until morning. Part 2. Rules. I'm going to skip the next 3 months, because they were exactly what you'd expect. Grief, interviews, missing person flyers, a segment on local news. My mother aged 10 years. My father, who'd been out of the picture since I was 11, called once, cried, blamed my mother, and never called again. The police investigation went cold in the way they do not with a declaration, just with longer gaps between updates until the updates stopped. But the game didn't go cold. The game was warm. The game was ongoing. After I said, ready or not, here I come. The counting stopped, but other things started. The first was spatial. Rooms in our house began to be wrong in a way I could feel but not initially see. The basement was 3 steps deeper than it had been. I counted and counted again, and measured the height of each step with a ruler. The staircase was the same 13 steps it had always been, but the descent took longer. The air at the bottom was colder. The space behind the water heater Emmett's hiding spot was deeper than the wall should have allowed. The second was behavioral. I began to find hiding spots that shouldn't have existed. A gap between my dresser and the wall that was wide enough for a child to fit into, though the dresser was flush against the wall. A coat in the front closet that, when I pushed it aside, revealed not the closet's back wall, but an additional 3 feet of dark space. A cabinet under the bathroom sink that extended back further than the plumbing allowed. The third was auditory, not the counting that had stopped. Instead, occasionally, from inside these impossible spaces, I would hear breathing, not distressed, not hidden, patient. The breathing of someone who was very good at staying still and was waiting to be found. I didn't tell my mother any of this. She was barely functional. I told Hayden. Hayden was a 12-year-old who built computers from parts and had read every SCP entry on the wiki and was, at that specific moment in his development, possibly the only person in my life equipped to hear what I was saying and respond with something other than concern for my mental health. He biked over the next Saturday. He brought a tape measure, a flashlight, a notebook, and Suki, who he hadn't been able to dissuade. The rules, Suki said, standing in our kitchen, arms crossed. She'd always been the most direct of any kid I knew. We need to figure out the rules. It's not a board game, I said. No, she said. It's hide and seek. And hide and seek has rules. Someone hides, someone seeks. There are boundaries. There's a time limit. There's a way to win. What happens when you win? The game ends. Hayden had the tape measure out and was measuring the basement stairs. 13 steps. He confirmed. But she's right. The distance is wrong. It takes me 16 paces to cross this basement. It took me 13 last time I was here. The room is growing. Not growing, Suki said. She was standing at the far wall, pressing her palm against it. It's making room, like it's opening up spaces to hide in. Spaces for what? For whoever's hiding. I felt cold. Emmett, I said. Suki looked at me with an expression I've thought about many times since. Not pity, not fear. Evaluation. Maybe, she said. Or maybe Emmett's just the reason we're playing. The game might be bigger than one person. That afternoon, we documented everything. Hayden measured every room in the house. Suki cataloged every anomalous space. every gap, every extension, every impossible depth. I provided the baseline, since I'd lived there and could say with certainty which dimensions were wrong. By 4 p.m. we had a map. The anomalous spaces weren't random. They formed a rough path through the house, starting at the kitchen, where I'd been counting, and extending through the living room, down the hall, into the basement, and terminating at the crawlspace access panel, the small door in the basement wall that opened onto a concrete dead end, 3 feet deep. Except it wasn't 3 feet deep anymore. Hayden shone his flashlight into it, and the beam didn't find a back wall. That goes somewhere now, he said. I know, I said. You haven't gone in? No. Good, said Suki. Because if you're it, and you find him, the game ends. But we don't know what ends means. We don't know the winning condition. The winning condition of hide and seek is finding the person, I said. In normal hide and seek. In this version, the game took a real person. So maybe finding him gives him back. Or maybe finding him means you take his place. We need more information before you go in there. I hated that she was right. I hated that she was 12 and more rational than me. I hated that Emmett was somewhere inside a crawl space that now went on forever, and I was standing here making plans instead of going after him. How do we get more information? I asked. Suki pulled out her phone. We find out if this has happened before. Part 3. Margaret Oleander, 1987. It had happened before. Not exactly the same. Not in our house, but in our town, and the details were close enough to make my hands shake when Suki read them out loud. She'd found it in the archives of the Lanthorn County Register, which had been digitized by the local historical society in a grant-funded project that apparently nobody ever used because the search interface was from 2003 and most of the OCR was garbled. But Suki was patient and methodical, and she found it. October 1987. A girl named Margaret Oleander, age 7, disappeared during a game of tag in Roth Park, the park, 3 blocks from our house. Her older brother, Dale, age 13, had been it. He'd been counting against the big oak at the park's center. Margaret had run to hide. They were playing a hybrid version, tag and seek, common with little kids. Dale finished counting, opened his eyes, and Margaret was gone. 3 other children present confirmed. She'd been running toward the picnic shelters, and then she was simply not there. The article was a standard missing child story. What made it relevant was a letter to the editor published 3 weeks later, written by Dale Oleander himself. The Register had printed it under the headline, Brother's Plea, presumably as a human interest piece to keep attention on the case. Most of the letter was what you'd expect. Please help us find Margaret. She has brown hair and brown eyes. She was wearing a yellow shirt. But the last paragraph said, I know people will think I'm making this up, but the tree I was counting against has changed. The bark opened up, and there's a space inside now that wasn't there before. I can hear her inside it. She's not crying. She's just waiting. I think she's waiting for me to find her. But every time I reach in, the space gets deeper. I've told the police, and they don't hear what I hear. If anyone else can hear counting coming from the oak tree at Roth Park, please call my family. I'm not crazy. The game isn't over. Jesus, Hayden said. I was already putting on my shoes. We're going to the park? He asked. We're going to the tree. The oak at Roth Park was massive. A bur oak, probably 200 years old, with a trunk you couldn't wrap your arms around. It was still there. It had always been there, every day of my childhood, and I had never once looked at it closely. We looked at it closely now. The bark on the north side, about 3 feet up, had a seam, not a natural split-a-seam, like a door that had been pulled almost shut. It was about 8 inches wide. Inside was dark. Hayden shone his flashlight in. The beam went deep, much deeper than the diameter of the tree. Same thing, Suki said quietly. It's the same thing. The game makes spaces. Does that mean Margaret Oleander is in this tree? I think it means Margaret Oleander was hidden in this tree in 1987. Whether she's still there, Suki trailed off. I leaned close to the seam. I didn't put my hand in. I listened. Nothing. No breathing. No counting. The game's not active here, I said. It's active at our house, because that's where our game started. So these are old hiding spots, Hayden said. Closed games. Finished or abandoned? Abandoned, Suki said. I don't think Margaret Oleander was found. I think Dale eventually stopped playing. Moved away, grew up, whatever. And the game just closed without finishing. And Margaret? Suki didn't answer. We went home. I spent the evening searching for Dale Oleander and found him on the third try, a LinkedIn profile, an engineer in Raleigh, North Carolina. I messaged him from my mother's account, pretending to be her, saying I was researching local history. I didn't expect a reply. He replied within an hour. Part 4. The conversation with Dale. I'm going to reproduce this as close to verbatim as I can. We moved from LinkedIn messages to a phone call. I told him the truth that I was 14, that my brother was missing, that I'd found his letter in the register. There was a long silence on the line, and then he started talking, and he didn't stop for 40 minutes. The counting lasted 9 days for me, he said. Then I said the words, ready or not, and it stopped, and the hiding spots started opening. I could feel them all over the park. Inside the tree, under the bench, behind the restroom building where the wall had pulled away from the foundation. Little pockets of space that shouldn't have been there. Did you go in? I went into the tree. I got my arm in up to the shoulder. It was warm inside, dry, and I could feel something in there. Not Margaret, not a hand or a body, but a presence. Like the air was thicker where she'd been. And I heard her, not calling for help, just breathing. Content, like she was winning. Winning? She was hidden. I couldn't find her. In hide and seek, if the seeker can't find you, you win. I think, and I've had almost 40 years to think about this. I think whatever this is, it doesn't experience the game the way we do. For us, it's a game. For it, the game is the point. The hiding is the point. Being hidden so well that you can never be found. That's the optimal outcome. That's what it does. It hides things perfectly. But I have to find Emmett, I said. That's how it ends, right? I find him? The game's over? Another long silence. I don't know. I never found Margaret. What happened? I tried for 3 months. Every day after school, I'd go to the park, and I'd search every hiding spot, and they'd always be a little deeper, a little more elaborate. New ones would open up, behind the drinking fountain, inside the jungle gym tubes, under the roots of the other trees. It was like the whole park was becoming a hiding place. And I could always hear her sometimes breathing, sometimes giggling. Once she said my name, but I could never reach her. My arm wasn't long enough. The spaces were always deeper than I could go. You could have climbed in. I know. I almost did, twice. But something stopped me. Not fear, exactly. More like, you know how in the game, the seeker doesn't hide? The seeker seeks. If I'd climbed into one of those spaces, I wouldn't have been seeking anymore. I'd have been hiding. And I think the game would have been very happy about that. What happens if the seeker hides? I think the game gets 2, instead of 1. I felt the floor tilt under me. My family moved in 1988, Dale continued. My mom couldn't stay in the house. We moved to Virginia. And once I left Lanthorn, not immediately, but over about a week, the counting I'd been hearing in the background, this very faint undercurrent that had been there since October, it faded. And the hiding spots in my new house never appeared. The game was. I don't want to say it was over. It wasn't over. I just left the playing field. And Margaret? They never found her. She's still listed as a missing person. Cold case. She's in the tree, I said. Maybe. Or maybe by now the tree has grown around whatever space she was in. Maybe the space closed when I stopped seeking. I don't know, Nora. I've spent decades not knowing, and I've made my peace with it in the way you make peace with an amputation you live, but you're never whole. I'm not going to leave, I said. I'm going to find Emmett. I know, he said. I would have said the same thing at your age. But listen to me. The game doesn't want you to find him. The game wants to hide him. You're playing against something whose entire purpose is to make the hidden unfindable. The longer you seek, the deeper it hides. Every time you get close, it will make more space, more depth, more complexity. It will be always just beyond your reach. That's not a flaw in the game. That's the game working correctly. Then how do I win? I don't think you do. I think the only move is to stop playing. That's not a move. That's giving up. Yes, he said. It is. I thanked him and hung up. I sat in the kitchen for a long time. The crawl space in the basement breathed quietly beneath me. Then I called Hayden. Part 5. Suki's Theory. Hayden and Suki came over the next morning. It was a Saturday. Mom was at her sister's. She'd been spending more time away from the house, and I couldn't blame her. The house didn't feel right anymore. Not menacing exactly. Expectant. Like it was waiting for me to do something. I told them everything Dale had said. Suki listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "He's wrong." About what? About the game being unwinnable. He's wrong because he's thinking about it from the seeker's perspective. The seeker can never find the hider because the game keeps deepening the hiding spots. Fine. That's the rule for the seeker. But what about the hider? Hayden looked up. What do you mean? In hide and seek, there are two ways the game ends. Either the seeker finds the hider, that's the seeker winning, or the hider comes out on their own. Ollie, ollie, oxen free. The seeker gives up, calls the safe word, and the hider reveals themselves. The hider wins, because they were never found. But the hider is Emmett, I said. He's a 9-year-old kid trapped inside some kind of impossible space. He can't just come out. Why not? Because he's hidden. The game took him. The game hid him. But hide and seek isn't a prison. The hider chooses to stay hidden. The hider can always come out. That's what makes it a game and not a kidnapping. If the hider couldn't leave, it wouldn't be hide and seek. It would just be containment. You think Emmett is choosing to stay? I think Emmett is playing. He's 9. He's hiding. And he's good at it. And the game is helping him be better at it than he could ever be on his own. He's winning. Why would he come out? I stared at her. Because it's been 3 months. For us. We don't know what it's been for him. Time might not work the same in there. Or it might feel like 5 minutes. He might not know anything's wrong. So what do? We call him out. We end the round. Not by finding him, Dale was right. That's playing the game on its terms. And the game is better at hiding than we are at seeking. We end it the other way. We call Ollie Ollie oxen free, and we give Emmett a reason to come out. That's insane, Hayden said, but he was already nodding. It's hide and seek, Suki said. The game has rules. We've been trying to break the rules or outrun them. What if we just play correctly? Part 6. The Attempt. We prepared for 3 days. Suki was meticulous. She researched the history of Ollie Ollie oxen free, the origin, the variants, the function. A safe word that means, the game is over, you can come out. You won't be penalized. All is forgiven. She found that the phrase likely derived from all ye outs in free, a call to all hiders that the round was done and they could reveal themselves without consequence. The game has to honor it, she said. If it's really hide and seek, if the rules are the rules, then the safe word is part of the contract. The seeker has the right to concede. And if this thing doesn't play by those rules, then it's not hide and seek, and we're dealing with something else entirely. But everything so far matches. The counting, The seeking, the hiding spots, the way it escalates. This is a game. It's just a game that's gotten very, very big. On Wednesday afternoon, the three of us stood at the crawl space access panel in the basement. The dark went deep, deeper than last week. Hayden's flashlight beam disappeared into it like light into water. I should do it, I said. I'm it. We all heard the counting, Suki said. We're all in the game. I'm it, I repeated. The seeker calls the safe word. That's how it works. They let me. They stood behind me, close enough that I could feel Hayden's breath on my neck. I leaned toward the crawl space. The air coming out of it was warm and dry, exactly as Dale had described. It smelled like dust and something sweeter underneath, like the cedar blocks my mom put in closets. Emmett, I said. My voice went into the space and didn't echo. It was absorbed, like speaking into a pillow. Emmett, the game's over. You win. You win, okay? I couldn't find you. You're the best hider ever. I give up. Nothing. Ollie, ollie, oxen free, I said. Come out, wherever you are. Game over. You win. Silence. Then, and all three of us heard it, a rustle. Fabric on concrete. The sound of someone shifting position after sitting still for a long time. Then, Emmett's voice, distant but clear. You're not supposed to give up. I almost collapsed. Hayden grabbed my arm. Suki put her hand on my back. Emmett, I said, and I was crying now. Emmett, please, come out. Mom's scared. I'm scared. The game's been going on for 3 months. Please. It hasn't been that long. It has. It's November. You went in August. Please come back. A long pause. Then, but I'm winning. You won. You won already. I'm calling it. Ollie, ollie, oxen free. Please. Another rustle. Closer this time? Maybe. Or maybe I wanted it to be closer. If I come out, will we play again? I opened my mouth to say no, never. We're never playing again. And Suki gripped my arm so hard her nails dug in. Yes, I said, because I understood what Suki was telling me. The game needed to be able to continue. It needed the possibility of another round. If I said never again, I was trying to end the game permanently, and the game would not allow that. But if I said yes, I was just ending the round. That was within the rules. Yes, I said again. We'll play again. But this round is over. You won. Promise? I promise. Quiet. The warm air from the crawl space shifted, like an exhale. And then the space began to close. Not dramatically, not like a door slamming, more like the way a held breath releases. The darkness receded. The depth of the crawl space shortened, inch by inch, foot by foot, until Hayden's flashlight found the concrete back wall again. 3 feet deep. Normal. Correct. Emmett was not in the crawl space. Where is he? Hayden whispered. Upstairs. The front door opened. Part 7. What came back? I took the stairs, 3 at a time. I came around the corner into the front hall, and Emmett was standing at the door. He was wearing the same clothes, the red t-shirt with the dinosaur on it, the cargo shorts. His shoes were off. He always took his shoes off when he came inside. Even now. Even after 3 months in an impossible space. The habit persisted. That's what broke me. I grabbed him and held him, and he was warm and real and solid, and he smelled like cedar and dust, and underneath that he smelled like Emmett, like cheap shampoo and the specific scent of a 9-year-old boy in August. He hugged me back. Why are you crying? He said. I was only hiding. You were hiding for a long time, buddy. It didn't feel long. He pulled back and looked at me, and his face was exactly right. The gap where he'd lost a tooth, the scrape on his chin from when he'd fallen off his bike, the cowlick. Everything correct. Everything in place. Suki and Hayden stood at the basement doorway, watching. Suki's expression was the one I now recognized as her evaluation face. She was cataloging. Are you hungry? I asked him. Yeah. I made him a sandwich. He ate it normally. He told me about hiding, about how the space behind the water heater had gotten bigger, and how he'd found a room back there, a warm room with soft walls, and he'd curled up and it had felt like floating. He said he could hear me calling for him sometimes, but it sounded far away, and he'd been winning, and it felt so good to be winning. He said it felt like the best game he'd ever played. He seemed fine. Hayden left that evening. Suki lingered. She pulled me aside while Emmett was watching TV, and she said, "Check him." "Check him for what?" "I don't know. But you promised the game would continue. Another round, and the game heard you." I was just saying what I needed to say to get him out. And it worked, which means the game accepted the terms. There will be another round, Nora. The game will start again, and I don't know if the game will wait for you to initiate it. She left. I locked the doors. I watched Emmett watching cartoons, and he was perfect. He was entirely himself. And when Mom came home, I watched her fall apart with relief. And I held both of them on the couch, and I thought, it's over. This round is over. We won him back. I was wrong about it being over, but I was right about one thing. We did win him back. Part 8. The second count. 5 months passed. Winter into spring. Emmett went back to school. The police investigation was quietly closed. Emmett's reappearance was attributed to him hiding in the neighborhood, and the 3-month absence was chalked up to an administrative error in the timeline. Nobody wanted to look too hard at it. Mom was just grateful. The house went back to normal. The spaces closed. Every room measured correctly. The crawl space was 3 feet deep, and stayed that way. The basement stairs were 13 steps, and the basement itself took 13 paces to cross. I checked weekly. I almost stopped checking. Almost. In March, on the first warm day, Emmett was in the backyard. I was in the kitchen doing homework. Hayden was over. He came by most Saturdays now. And we'd developed the kind of bond that only forms between people who've been through something they can't tell anyone else about. From the backyard, Emmett shouted, "Nora, let's play hide and seek." My blood went cold. Hayden looked at me. I looked at Hayden. "He's 9, Hayden said carefully. "Kids play hide and seek. It might just be a game. And if it isn't, then we handle it." I went to the back door. Emmett was standing in the grass, grinning. "I'll seek this time," he said. "You hide." You hide. The words landed in my chest like stones. Because in the last round, Emmett had been the hider, and the game had hidden him so well, I almost lost him forever. Now, he wanted to seek. The roles were reversed, and I had promised there would be another round. "Not today, bud," I said. His face fell. "You promised." "I know, but not today." "You promised." The emphasis was wrong. Not the petulance of a disappointed child. Something flatter, more mechanical, like the word promised had been pressed into his mouth by something else. His eyes were his eyes, but the insistence behind them was not entirely his. "Emmett," I said quietly, "do you want to play, or does the game want you to play?" He blinked. The flatness broke. He looked confused, then scared. I don't know," he said. "I just really want to play. I want to play so bad, Nora. It's like an itch." I brought him inside. I called Suki. Part 9. The Itch. Suki arrived within an hour, on her bike, out of breath. She sat Emmett down at the kitchen table and talked to him the way she talked to everyone directly, without condescension, without softening. "Emmett, when you were in the hiding space, did anything talk to you?" "No." "Did you see anything?" "It was dark, but nice dark, like being under a blanket." "Did you feel anything besides warm?" He thought about it. "I felt like I was the best, like nobody would ever find me. It felt really good." "And now?" "The itch to play again, when did it start?" "I don't know. It's been there since I came back, I think. But it was small. Like when you kind of want ice cream, but you don't really need it. But lately it's gotten bigger. And today, when it got warm outside, it was really big, like I have to play. Suki looked at me. "The game's collecting," she said. "Collecting what?" "It's next round. You promised. And the game uses the hider as the vector." Emmett came back, but the game came back with him. "It's been dormant over the winter. Maybe it's seasonal. Maybe it needs warmth. Maybe it's just a timing mechanism. But it's ready now. It wants to play again." "I won't play," I said. "The promise was made inside the game space. I don't think you can just choose not to honor it. The game heard you and released Emmett on those terms. If you refuse..." "What? What happens?" "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe the spaces start opening again. Maybe Emmett goes back." Emmett looked at me with wide eyes. "I don't want to go back," he said. And that was him, fully him. No flatness, no mechanical edge. A scared kid. "You're not going back," I said. "Then we play the round," Suki said. "But we play it our way." Part 10. The second round. Here's what Suki proposed. If the game needed to happen, we would control the terms. In hide and seek, the seeker defines the counting speed, the boundaries, the starting location. The seeker has structural authority. Last time, I'd been the seeker, but the game had taken over the count. This time, we would hold every variable. Emmett would seek. We would hide, but we would hide badly in plain sight, findable within seconds. The round would open and close so fast the game couldn't deepen anything, couldn't make spaces, couldn't take anyone. "Speedrun it," Hayden said. "Exactly. Give the game its round, but starve it." We set the boundaries, the kitchen only, nowhere else. Emmett would count to 10, not 60, not 100, 10. Then he'd find us. We'd be right there. Game over. We started at 3 p.m. The air in the kitchen was normal. No counting other than Emmett's. No spatial anomalies. I stood behind the refrigerator, fully visible from the side. Hayden stood behind the open pantry door. Suki crouched next to the table, making no effort to conceal herself. 1, 2, 3, Emmett counted. His voice was normal. His rhythm was his own. 4, 5, 6. Normal. Just a kid counting. 7, 8, 9. The air shifted. Not dramatically. A thickening, like humidity rising. I felt the space behind the refrigerator deepen by about an inch. The gap between the fridge and the wall was slightly wider than it had been. 10. Ready or not, here I come. Emmett spun around. He saw Hayden first. "Found you?" He saw Suki. "Found you?" He looked at me behind the fridge. "Found you, Nora?" The thickening in the air dissipated. The gap behind the refrigerator snapped back to its normal width. The kitchen was just a kitchen. "The game's over," Suki said. "You found everyone. You win." Emmett beamed. "That was easy. You guys are bad at hiding." "The worst," I agreed. "And the itch?" I asked Emmett that night. "It's gone," he said, sounding surprised, like it was never there. Part 11. The pattern. We played again in April, and in May, and in June. Always the same way. Kitchen only. Count of 10. Hiding in plain sight. Found in seconds. The game would stir, the air would thicken, the spaces would try to grow, and then it would be over before it could establish itself. Each time, Emmett's itch would build over weeks and then release when the round completed. We were managing it. Suki called it controlled burns, giving the game just enough to satisfy its terms without letting it take hold. Hayden built a monitoring system. He installed humidity sensors and laser distance measurers in every room of the house, feeding data to a Raspberry Pi in his backpack. He could see the spatial anomalies in real time, tiny fluctuations in room dimensions that preceded the game's attempts to activate. We could tell when a round was coming due by watching the numbers drift. It worked. Through the fall, through the winter, through the following spring, Emmett grew. He turned 10. Then 11. The rounds became routine, a monthly obligation, like a chore. Count, seek, find, done. The game got its round. We got our brother. But the spaces tried to grow each time, and each time they tried a little harder. In September, the gap behind the fridge deepened 2 inches instead of 1. In December, Suki noticed a new hiding spot forming under the kitchen table, a shadow that was slightly too dark, slightly too deep during the count. By February, Hayden's sensors showed dimensional drift in rooms we weren't even using for the game. The living room walls were a 1/4 inch farther apart than they should have been. "It's accumulating," Suki said. We were 15 now, me 16, Suki and Hayden 15. We were sitting in Hayden's room, looking at his data on a monitor. The graphs showed a clear trend. Each round was slightly more intense than the last. The controlled burns were working, but the underlying fuel load was increasing. "It's not satisfied with the short rounds," Hayden said. "It wants a real game, someone hidden properly. The 10-second rounds are like feeding a dog a single kibble. It takes the food, but it's still hungry." "So what happens when it's hungry enough that the 10 seconds aren't enough to contain it?" Nobody answered. Part 12. Suki's move. In April, 2 years after Emmett's return, the game broke containment. It was a Saturday, round day. We were in the kitchen, same as always. Emmett counted to 10, but on 7, every room in the house opened at once. Hayden's phone lit up with alerts, dimensional drift in every sensor, all at once. The kitchen expanded. The space behind the fridge didn't deepen by an inch or two. It yawned open, becoming a gap wide enough to step into, dark and warm and cedar-scented. I scrambled out from behind the fridge. Suki stood up from beside the table. Hayden backed away from the pantry. 8, Emmett counted, and his voice had the harmonic, now the second voice underneath, the one I hadn't heard in 2 years. "Emmett, stop counting," I shouted. 9. He couldn't stop, or he didn't want to. His eyes were closed and his face was serene, and the kitchen was becoming a labyrinth, the walls pulling apart, new spaces opening in every direction behind the stove, inside the cabinets, under the sink. A vast, dark architecture of hiding places blooming like time-lapse flowers. 10. Ready or not, Suki stepped into the gap behind the refrigerator. She did it without hesitation, without announcement. 1 second she was standing in the kitchen. The next, she had turned sideways and slipped into the dark space and was gone. "Suki!" Hayden lunged for the gap. I grabbed him. I held on with everything I had while he fought me, and the gap was already closing, the kitchen contracting, the spaces folding back in on themselves like origami in reverse. "Here I come," Emmett finished, opening his eyes. He looked around the kitchen. "Found you, Nora. Found you, Hayden." He looked for Suki. She wasn't there. "Where's Suki?" he asked. Hayden was on his knees. I was still holding his arm. The kitchen was normal again. Every dimension correct. Every space closed. Except that Suki was not in it. "She hid," Hayden said, and his voice was something I never want to hear again. She actually hid. And from somewhere in the house, everywhere and nowhere, ambient and sourceless, a giggle, and then silence. Part 13. What? Suki left. On Hayden's phone, in the Notes app, time-stamped the night before, a message from Suki. "Hayden and Nora. The controlled burns aren't working. You can see it in the data. The game is getting stronger, and we're running out of runway. Within 3 or 4 more rounds, it'll be strong enough to take someone during the count whether we want it to or not. And it'll take Emmett, because Emmett is the one it knows. The game needs a real round, a real hider, someone hidden so well they can't be found easily. It needs to be fed properly, or it'll break out and feed itself. But here's what Dale Oleander didn't figure out. The hider can always come out. He said it himself. Hide and seek isn't a prison. The hider chooses to stay hidden. He assumed Margaret couldn't come out because she was a little kid, and she didn't want to stop winning. But I'm not 7, and I'm not 9, and I know what I'm walking into. I'm going to hide for real. Give the game what it wants. A proper round, with a proper hiding spot, and a proper search. Let it spend its energy hiding me, instead of accumulating pressure to take Emmett. And when I'm ready, when I decide the round has gone long enough, I'll come out. On my own terms. Don't come looking for me. That's the seeker's move, and the game will use it to deepen the space. Just wait. I'll call Ollie Ollie Oxen free from the inside. This is hide and seek. The hider has the power. P.S. If it takes longer than a month, I was wrong about everything, and you should do what Dale did. Move. Get out. Stop playing. Let the game close with me in it. I'd rather be Margaret Oleander than let it keep eating your family one round at a time. Part 14. Seeking without searching. The hardest thing I've ever done is not look for Suki. Every instinct screamed at me to tear open every wall, pry up every floorboard, reach into every shadow. I could feel the hiding spots in the house not open, but present, like nodes in a network, each one containing a depth that Suki might be inside of. The space behind the fridge. The crawl space in the basement. A new one in the attic, where the wallpaper had peeled back from the wall to reveal a gap that exhaled warm air. Hayden wanted to search. I had to physically restrain him on the first day, and then I had to sit him down and read Suki's note to him until he understood. If we sought, the game would deepen. The seeker's actions fed the hiding. The only way Suki's plan worked was if we didn't play. She's in there alone, Hayden said. She chose it. She's 15. She's the smartest person either of us has ever met, and she left instructions, and we're going to follow them. We followed them. We waited. Day 1, I heard nothing. Day 2, from the attic gap, a faint sound of breathing. Day 3, Hayden's sensors showed the dimensional drift, holding steady, not increasing. The game was active, but it wasn't growing. It had what it wanted. Day 7, from the crawl space in the basement, a voice. Suki's voice, muffled but clear. I'm okay. It's warm in here. I can feel the space. It's big, bigger than I expected. It's like a building, rooms and corridors. It's not scary. It's just quiet. Are you winning? I asked. A laugh. Her real laugh. I'm winning so hard. Day 14. The sensors showed a slight contraction. The hiding spots were getting smaller. Day 21. I could no longer hear Suki's breathing through any of the gaps. But Hayden's sensors showed the dimensional drift decreasing steadily, like a fever breaking. Day 28. The crawl space in the basement measured 3 feet deep. The attic wallpaper was flat against the wall. The gap behind the refrigerator was exactly the width it should have been. Day 30. At 3:17 p.m., the front door opened. Suki walked in. She was wearing the same clothes she'd been wearing a month ago. She looked tired, but not hurt. She looked like someone who'd been camping for a long time and was ready for a shower. Ollie Ollie Oxen free, she said. Hayden crossed the room and held her so hard I thought he'd break her ribs. It worked? I asked. It worked. The game hid me, and I let it, and it spent everything it had, making the perfect hiding place. It made rooms, and tunnels, and nests. It was beautiful, actually, in a weird way, like being inside a cathedral made of blankets. But the whole time, I knew I could leave. I could feel the way out, like a thread. The game kept trying to make me forget about it. It would move the thread, make it fainter, make the hiding spot more comfortable. But I didn't forget. Why did it take a month? Because I had to wait until the game exhausted itself. It kept building, kept deepening, kept trying to make the perfect spot. But it has a finite amount of whatever it runs on. Energy, intention, It spent it all on me, because I was the only hider. And when it ran out, the spaces collapsed, and I walked out. Is it over? She sat down at the kitchen table. She looked at me with that evaluation face, but softer now, tempered by whatever she'd seen in there. I think so. The game played out. It hid someone. It spent its energy, and the hider came home, not because the seeker found them, not because someone called them out, because the hider decided the game was over and walked out under their own power. That's not in the rules. That's beyond the rules. The game doesn't have a protocol for a hider who just leaves. You broke it? I don't know if I broke it, but I don't feel it anymore. Do you? I closed my eyes. I reached for that ambient pressure, that sense of the house holding its breath, the warm expectancy that had lived in the walls for 2 years. It was gone. The house was just a house. Walls, floors, rooms with correct dimensions. No depths, no hiding spots, no breathing. Emmett, I said. Does he still have the itch? We found him in his room, playing a video game. Emmett, do you want to play hide and seek? He looked at me like I was crazy. No, I'm playing Zelda. That was 3 days ago. Part 15. The Door. Here's why I'm posting this. Suki said the game was over. The sensors are clean. Emmett is normal. The house is normal. But this morning, I woke up early and went downstairs for water, and I passed the front hall closet, and I stopped. The closet door was open about an inch. Warm air was coming out of it. Not much, just a breath. I opened the door. The closet was normal. Coats, shoes, vacuum cleaner. Nothing wrong. But I stood there, and I felt something I haven't felt in 3 days. Not the game, not the counting, not the itch, not the pressure. Something else, something new. I wanted to hide, not be hidden, not be taken. I wanted to step into that closet and pull the door shut and curl up in the dark and be perfectly, beautifully, impossibly hidden where no one would ever find me. It wasn't fear, and it wasn't compulsion. It was desire. Pure, clean, simple desire to hide so well that the world couldn't reach me. I closed the closet door. I went back to bed. The feeling faded. But I know what Suki spent a month inside of. I know what it offered her. And I think the reason she looked so tired when she came out wasn't because the game drained her. It was because leaving was the hardest thing she'd ever done. She liked it in there. The perfect hiding spot. The warmth, the quiet, the total safety of being unfindable. And now, I want it too. The game isn't in the walls anymore. It's not in the house. It's not in the crawl space. It's not in the tree at Roth Park. It's in us. Everyone who played. The itch isn't Emmett's anymore. It's mine. And maybe it's not even an itch. Maybe it's a seed. The game doesn't need hiding spots in walls. It just needed someone to carry the feeling of being perfectly hidden out into the world. And Suki, brilliant, brave Suki, walked right into its deepest room and breathed it in for a month and brought it back with her like pollen on her clothes. I'm going to talk to her today. I'm going to ask her if she feels it too. But I think I know the answer. I saw it in her face when she walked through the front door. Not relief, not triumph. Longing. I don't think the game ended. I think it evolved. It doesn't need to hide people in walls anymore. It taught us to want to hide ourselves. And the worst part? The worst part is that the wanting feels good. It feels like the purest, most honest desire I've ever had. Like every complicated, exhausting thing about being seen and known and findable could just stop. Like I could step into a warm, dark space and close the door and finally win. I haven't done it. I'm writing this instead. I'm making myself findable, visible, seen. Every word is the opposite of hiding. But it's 4 a.m., and the closet is 10 feet away, and the door is open again, and the air is warm, and I can hear, very faintly, from inside, counting. Not the mechanical voice from 2 years ago, my own voice, counting down from 10, getting ready to seek myself. If I stopped posting, I didn't find what I was looking for. I hid from it.